Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are tackling a vegetable that, let's be honest, has a bit of a reputation in the garden, the cauliflower. If you've ever felt a little intimidated by the idea of growing those big, beautiful, dense white heads, well, you are definitely in the right place. We are going to break it all down and show you exactly how to succeed. You know, this quote from GrowVeg really says it all, doesn't it? So many of us feel this way. Cauliflower is famous for being a garden diva. It wants what it wants, when it wants it. But today, we're going to pull back the curtain and show you that with just a little bit of insider knowledge, this so-called diva is actually pretty manageable. Okay, so let's just dive right into it. Why the reputation? What's the deal with cauliflower being so difficult? It's not just a myth. There are some very real reasons this plant can be a bit of a challenge. But stick with me because understanding why it's tricky is the very first step to learning how to master it. So here's the bottom line. Cauliflower is a creature of habit. It craves consistency. It needs cool weather, right in that sweet spot of 60 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Any kind of interruption, a surprise heat wave, you forget to water for a few days, not enough food in the soil, it stresses the plant out. And when it gets stressed, it panics and does this thing called buttoning, where it just gives up and produces a tiny little premature head instead of that big one you were dreaming of. And here's a really cool fact for you. The part of the cauliflower we eat, it's not a vegetable in the way you might think. It's not a root. It's not a fruit. It's actually what's called an inflorescence. That head, or the curd, is a giant cluster of thousands of unopened flower buds. Yep, you're basically eating a bouquet. If you left it in the garden, it would eventually bolt and burst into a spray of little yellow flowers. It's all part of that big brassica family, a cousin to broccoli, cabbage, and kale. All right, so we've talked about the problems. Let's get to the solutions. It's time to crack the cauliflower code. And here's the good news. There's no crazy secret technique. It really just comes down to understanding and consistently providing for 4 key needs. You get these 4 things right, and you are well on your way to a perfect harvest. And here it is. This is your recipe for success. First up, it needs full sun. We're talking at least 6 to 8 hours a day to really power up its growth. Second, that consistent cool temperature we talked about, that's absolutely not negotiable. Third, this plant is a heavy feeder. It needs rich, well-drained soil that's just a little bit on the acidic side. And finally, consistent moisture. About 1 to 1.5 inches of water every week keeps it cool, happy, and totally stress-free. So you might be asking, why go through all this trouble? Well, beyond that incredible, nutty flavor of a homegrown cauliflower, the nutritional payoff is just huge. It is packed with vitamin C, it's a great source of minerals, and it has these things called phytochemicals that have been studied for all sorts of health benefits. And here's a pro tip. Don't you dare throw away those leaves. They're totally edible and super nutritious too. Now, of course, while we're talking about all these amazing health benefits, it's really important to remember that this is all for educational purposes. For any specific medical or dietary advice, you should always talk to a qualified healthcare professional. Okay, let's get into the fun part, the actual growing journey. We're going to follow this plant from a tiny little seed all the way to a full-grown, ready-to-harvest head. We'll walk through it step by step so you'll feel totally confident at every single stage. This timeline gives you a really great bird's-eye view of the whole process. It all starts on day 1, when you sow that tiny seed. Just about 2 weeks later, you'll thin them out, picking the strongest seedling in each little cell to focus on. By day 49, you've got this big, leafy, established plant. And then the magic really starts to happen. After about 95 days of patience, boom, you are rewarded with a beautiful, compact head ready for the kitchen. The whole process takes around 3 months. So let's really zoom in on getting started. The best way to do it is to start your seeds indoors, about 4 to 7 weeks before your area's last frost date. While those little guys are growing, you can get your garden bed ready with lots of rich compost. Then comes a step you cannot skip, hardening them off. Over 2 weeks, you'll slowly get them used to being outside. Then finally, it's time to transplant them, making sure to give them plenty of room to grow, about 18 to 24 inches apart. Now, one of the biggest decisions you'll make is when to plant. You've got 2 main windows, spring or fall. For a spring crop, the big risk is a surprise heat wave right as the plants are trying to form their heads. That can cause that dreaded buttoning. Honestly, a lot of gardeners find way more success with a fall crop. You start the seeds in the summer, and the plants get to mature during the reliably cool, stable weather of autumn, which they just absolutely love. Have you ever wondered how grocery store cauliflowers get so perfectly snow white? Well, it's not a secret. It's a simple trick called blanching. Once that little head, the curd, gets to be about the size of an egg, you just gently pull the plant's own outer leaves up and over it. You can tie them loosely with some twine or even a big rubber band. This creates a natural little sunshade, protecting the head so it stays perfectly white and doesn't develop a bitter flavor. It's so easy and makes such a huge difference. Of course, no garden is perfect. You're gonna run into pests and other problems. But the great thing about cauliflower is that there are some really simple, really effective organic ways to protect your crop. No need to reach for the harsh chemicals. Think of this as your organic pest control playbook. The number one enemy is the cabbage worm. You'll see those big raggedy holes in the leaves. You can pick them off by hand, but covering your plants with garden mesh from the beginning is even better. You can also use something called BT. It's a natural bacteria that only affects caterpillars, totally safe for organic gardens. For aphids, a quick spray of soapy water usually does the trick. And for root maggots, a little cardboard cabbage collar right at the base of the stem is a simple physical barrier that works wonders. You know, your plant's leaves are like a little dashboard. They'll tell you exactly what's going on. If you start seeing the lower, older leaves turning yellow, that's a classic sign that your plant is hungry for nitrogen. A quick fix is to add some blood meal. Now, if you see weird brown spots developing on the head itself, that's often a boron deficiency. A simple soil drench with some liquid seaweed or a very diluted borax solution can fix that right up. You know, one of the best ways to protect your cauliflower is to just give it some friends. It's called companion planting. Strong-smelling herbs and aromatic plants like thyme, rosemary, onions, and garlic can actually confuse the pests that are looking for your cauliflower. And other plants like beans and celery are just good neighbors, helping create a healthier little ecosystem in your garden bed. And now, my favorite part. After all that careful planting and watering and protecting, it is finally time to reap the incredibly delicious rewards of all your hard work. Let's talk about the perfect harvest. So, the big question, how do you know when it's actually ready? Well, you're looking for a head that's somewhere between 6 and 8 inches across. But honestly, size isn't the most important thing. What you really want is density. The head should feel firm, heavy for its size, with all those little florets packed super tightly together. That's the sign of peak quality. But you have to be vigilant because timing is absolutely everything. And this right here is the single most important harvesting tip I can give you. It is all about tightness. The second you see those little florets start to separate and get a kind of coarse, ricey texture, you need to harvest it immediately. It is not going to get any bigger at that point. If you wait, it's just going to get bitter as the plant switches gears and tries to flower. And once you have that gorgeous head of cauliflower in your kitchen, oh, the possibilities. Please forget just steaming it. You have to try roasting it with spices until it's sweet and caramelized. You can puree it into the most velvety, creamy soup. Or pulse it in a food processor to make cauliflower rice. It's a star in curries, it's amazing pickled, baked into a casserole, or, of course, just eaten raw with a good dip. Now, for storing your amazing harvest, a fresh head will last in the fridge for up to 2 weeks, no problem. But if you grew a few too many, cauliflower freezes beautifully. All you have to do is cut it into florets, blanch them really quickly in boiling water, then pop them into an ice bath to stop the cooking and freeze them. They'll be fantastic for up to a year. So there you have it. The garden diva isn't so difficult after all. She just knows what she likes. By giving her that consistency in temperature, water, and food, you can absolutely grow beautiful cauliflower. We've totally demystified the process, which really only leaves one question. Now that you've got this newfound confidence, what gardening challenge are you going to take on next?